Readings indicate that the facility is still operating. This should not be possible. The Z8 robotic voice reads the analysis results to the SCAV team when multiple robotic arms are operating. Z8 points out that 3 different devices are capable of multitasking with perfect accuracy. "Have any life forms been discovered?" asked Ella, the Iron Captain, as she stood on a small pedestal in the center of the room that allowed her to be tall enough to look out the window. A white and red-striped tail swaying pensively outside the window is a frozen moon that contains the remains of a long-forgotten pre-immigration military base that doesn't show up on Captain Lizla's scanner. "Past this base. We hope we will not be that way. Just to make our mission futile. Even if it's not here, maybe the computer system on the system will leave something. These pre-migration bases are always incredible to explore. If there is nothing here, I will send a strongly worded letter to Ian Moss. And by strongly worded, I mean my fist." Argali grumbled through his stupid face, and being the only crew member, he was getting very annoyed as there was no one to help carry the heavy items on the long journey, and he barely fit in the control room. Narrow range, and his huge purple body was also taken away. We boarded the boat, descended to the rocky feature below, and positioned ourselves on a rickety dock. When Argali and Lisla arrived at the outer gate, they put on their environmental protection suits, and the 3 got off the boat. Z8 began to manually interact with the object, but after a minute of work, they had made no progress. With such antiquated security, they should have opened the door in seconds, but everything seemed unrecognizable to them. "Captain, it seems that the facility's computer systems have been rewritten entirely from the ground up. I do not even recognize the coding language. It can be harder than we are waiting for first. This place has 1,000 years of history. I think you have all the commons languages in your repository." "Indeed, we are. It looks like whoever did this did it from scratch. We're going to have to break it down into binary, and then organize it in a way that we can ensure that there aren't any life forms inside that are just making a new door." Argal complained that he rolled back and crushed the big dents into the side of Argal. "Not anymore. These old outposts are vulnerable. This could cause permanent damage, not to mention compromise structural integrity." Ella screamed, jumping up and trying to wrap her claws around his arm before he hit angry resistance again as the door hissed and swung inward. "Oh, well done. It's probably not too difficult for you. After all, we weren't the ones who opened the door." "Oh sure, madam. Maybe boxing is the key to Errol taking the initiative without orders. I just got it. We're not here anymore. Of course, we're going to the crew." The 3 entered the facility as the door closed behind them, causing the Holy Army to leap at Argalia in surprise. Seconds later, the dark hallway was illuminated by the hum of long-extinguished fluorescent bulbs. The corridors were lined with the long dead bodies of other Elamites, their bodies preserved by the cold temperatures and lack of air in the system, which began to back up and the compressed air flowed into the unit. The dead silence inside was replaced by a commotion, and the car started to wake up. "After Century's aid was out of work, I thought you said you couldn't access the facility properly. We couldn't decipher the programming language or create an interface. Instead, we restart the Errol system. I think for the safety of my SA, I should stay here." Of course, LRA said that the perch should grow a tail around its shoulders, which wraps around the neck of the great urn. For balance, he answered her with a growl. As the group continued forward, Argal accidentally bumped into one of the corpses, causing it to crumble into a pile of dust and bone. They followed the blinking lights that led them through the dilapidated hallways before reaching an intersection. The lights on the other end of the hallway were out, and the only thing illuminated was a door to their left. No matter what happens, the rooms want to be here, and the lights seem to want us inside. When we tried the interface, we were uncertain of the captain. We are actively excluded by some things. We have been trying to fail to get access because there are others in the facility, and they know we are here. Let the flashing lights shine. If others are here, I will hit them and take their weapons. They can be good for computers and beats. I love your optimism. There is a plan that is always good, but we may let it hit us so far. If they want to fight for us, they will not let us start fighting, because she looks at the new glowing way in front of him. When close to the inside, the corrosive door slides. As the group walked towards it, She had never seen a computer like this in the old textbooks she had studied before. The granulated speakers embedded in the room cracked. "Welcome to tourists. My name is Tic-Tac. It's so nice to see someone again. Hello, Tic-Tac, after all these years. Thanks for letting us in. My interface is very fragile. Now, may I ask what brought you here?" LRA hopped off Argyl's shoulder and walked over to the small black box in the center of the room, inspecting the surrounding cables and wires. "This is the operator at the facility where we came here to find weapons." "Withstand." Algor said, his finger joint bride. No, none. Don't resist us all here. We are looking here for an ancient weapon to aid us in a conflict that threatens all of our species. Would you happen to be a human?" The intercom made a strange sound and then spoke again. "No, I'm just relying on human wisdom. You must have come here because of my friend H. I don't think we've ever discussed the new name before, whether or not he's here. But before we go any further, I have to ask why you specifically sought us out." "Well, you see the Tic-Tac. We went on a search to find a weapon that could change our war tide. We are part of the Galactic Resistance Corps and have sent out many search parties looking for anything that might help us turn the tide of the war. We are one of them, and we want you to help us when needed. Unfortunately, we withdrew from the conflict many years ago. I don't think my partner would be so keen on taking on a fighting role again. We came here after trying to escape a life whose only purpose was war. If we could talk to him, maybe he would agree. Tell him why we fight. I'm afraid that's not possible. He is currently unwell, but if you can assist me in bringing him back to the waking world, then he may hear your voice. Forgive me for interrupting, but you have complete control over this facility." As they curiously examined the systems around the room, Zaid asked, "Isn't it within your power to bring him back yourself?" "If I could. In fact, I have been waiting for someone to accidentally discover this place so I can wake him up. But since I have no one, I have insufficient information about my current completion. If you have no body, how are you trying to build your own interface? Are these interfaces here before you produce them? To me, they do not know what they use, and they have experienced a lot of communication with me. I gritted my teeth until I had full access to their systems to understand their true motives. They had no real intentions toward us, so once they had served their purpose, I cleared them out of the facility. That explains why everyone here is not in perfect condition," Lazila said, looking at the bodies of her men in the room. "You wouldn't do that to us, Tic-Tac. As long as you don't threaten my sovereignty or try to harm my partner, I have no intention of doing so. Mr. Tic-Tac, to your left, how can we help you? You should see there's a cryogenic freezer inside. That's my partner. It calls for someone to free him from the outside, and I'll start with that. The process of waking him up shouldn't take too long because, after a few minutes, the noises in the corner of the room started to get louder, finally restarting after 1,000 years of inactivity. Okay, so for the persistent one, please stand up and release the clamps on the sides. How do you know what an endurer is? This facility was abandoned long before the Swallows came into contact with the wider galaxy. When you try to connect to my network, you open yourself up to me. I have access to memory and language databases stored on your systems. I apologize for this offense, but I did it out of an abundance of caution. Zat didn't know what to do or how easily the program could bypass their security measures without them. Even though they knew it was somehow impossible, they were a decentralized biological consciousness in a mechanical form. Their own internal systems should be completely free from outside interference. They put it aside. As a note for future reference, Errol stepped forward and released the tight grip. The pressure chamber inside is a living thing. None of them had ever seen it look more closely related to any biological being. It reached up and pulled from the curve of the pod, metal on either side just as it had when it first took off, almost as high as the sturdy Argyl stepped back and looked. He was ready to fight him and rest. I think it will not be very good for any of our TIC-TAC judgments. Before moving to the speakers in the back of the room and speaking in a strange language, all is well, buddy. Can you hear me, Tac? I trusted your plan. You think. For the first 5 years, I was aware. Do you have any idea they took over me? What does it say that I can't understand? Liesel asked as she jumped on the AR girl's back and looked over his shoulder. She tried to hide behind his large body so she could see the new creature in the room. What she didn't know was that underneath the armor was a tight-fitting garment that covered everything. There is no top in the metal coating. Its head was a large metal helmet with a bright orange visor covered with small hexagons that glittered for a moment. We upload a new language for your translators. This should solve the problem. I saw you post it here when I wasn't paying attention to tic-tac. I would ask you to refrain from breaching our systems in the future. The Zate reprimanded, and after a second, the other two were able to understand the strange creature's speech. Tic-Tac's voices turned on the intercom in the room again. It's good to hear your voice again. 909. You know, I don't like being called Taku anymore. I said don't call me 909 anymore. So let's forget who these people are. How long has it been since they found us? Take it slow. You're very disoriented right now. These ones are friendly, and no, they didn't find us. We're safe, hi. Mr. 909, don't call me that, right, Mr. Hum. Then we are here seeking a weapon to help us in a fight against a terrible enemy. Your friend Tic-Tac told us that you are what we came for, and you can be convinced to help us in this fight. No, I don't do that anymore. I have finished fighting other people's wars. Just get me off this cliff, but sir, you don't understand the core. They are violent. They abuse countless races outside their home. Take away our resources, unless their goal is to destroy every known beach in the galaxy. I have no interest in apologizing for keeping me from enjoying my retirement, but I'm afraid I have some bad news. I have discovered a slip, place, or break nearby, and it is moving in our direction. The ship arrived with some weapons. Oh, that was really quick and a bit of fun. You see, we're hoping to find one here. So, no, not really Axiom. Captain Nick's POV. Those traitors think they can hide from us in Yan's old home system. I'm going to show them what happens when they encounter Captain Nick Zai's. No one pulls over to me and gets away with it. I mean, how can I believe they are couriers? Yes, they had the necessary paperwork, so I had to follow the rules and let them go. But once they left the course, their fate was sealed. These three should make your day. They think they can escape a great team of Nico Rexes from the SCOV POV without weapons. That's fine. We can still handle the little ones. I never caught your name when I asked Tic-Tac from the speakers across the room. My name is Liesel. Captain Lizzie. Yes, more precisely, the third one, dear. Yes, Captain Lizzie. How sure are you that these people coming are hostile? I'm pretty sure. I just didn't expect them to be so suspicious of us and follow us here. Well, we lied to them and pretended to be galactic couriers, and that idiot bought every word of it too. Chucked Errol language. We're Tic-Tacs, dear guests. Don't worry here, little one. It's okay. I think I have a plan that could get us all out of here. I can completely stabilize the atmosphere in the facility, and when they come in, I can eject them from the airlock. Do you think that will give us enough time to reach your ships without fighting them ourselves? The whole reason I was sent to you was to bring this weapon. I wish I could at least use it, but right now I can't even because some guy complained about this weapon, and the Argali is annoyed, because there are still no confrontations that require his expertise. Don't worry if they stay after we take them out. We may have used you for you, and your name is Argal. He still mumbled, disappointed. In ancient times, there were no destructive weapons. He can use it as Errol, the god of war. What question Tic-Tac mixed only Argal fit? They should be here any minute. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove the atmosphere from this room, so we don't have to worry about pressurizing. When we act the Z8, is there a way to remotely control your ship from here? We don't even need to ask how you know our name, but please call us in the future. Yes, we have the ability to remotely control the ship. What are you thinking about your plans? From the security contribution, I can see that they will stand up on the boat near you. I will tell you where to move my ship. After I clear out the attackers, I'll light the way to another exit for you to navigate there. And there I'll push the door to open the airlock and drop you into the room where you'll be with us. What should you do together? I do not agree that I am blasted into the universe. The Lord TIC responded to the LRA to grab Argala, even closer to the claws. Yes, I'm sorry. Do not worry. If Zate gets the ship in position, you will be propelled right into the loading bay or your vessel. When I was connected to Zate, I was able to view the schematic of your ship. I'll send her a visual of how it should be positioned to receive you properly, Tik-Tiak replied, saying that it wasn't actually necessary. We can imagine that the human without your auxiliary computer, while the plans were being made, sat silently watching them throughout the conversation, his eyes never leaving Captain Yayan in the room. His masked helmet did not give him the feeling of his plan, or that of the other occupants in the room. Lisla jumped off the argel at the top and walked to Humans. When standing on the hind leg, she looked up at him, and she almost kneeled. Well, Mr. Human, do you have anything else to add to the plan?
No.
Will you stand up for us when it comes down to it? The laboratory wall was shocked throughout the plant. Look down. Just let me know the first time Tic-Tac cuts me off when they get to safety a penny earlier. And I don't want access to a facility where you're not coming with us, LRA asked, looking at the little black computer. We will follow soon. I'll make sure you get out safely. We still have a few things to pick up before we leave. The next second, there was an explosion in the hall, and then a loud noise echoed throughout the base. This is the Nicta poison of the Prowler Oris captain. You violated the Central Federal rules. 13745 imitated the Galaxy Courier and tried to escape the federal authorities with cooperation. If you refuse to do so, you will face serious consequences, such as more than $10,000 in penalties. That's the only reason he seems to be in a better mood today, laughs Al. Oh, we'll see if he still threatens us with a fine when I threaten him with my own spine and grunt the Argalia, clenching his fists. Okay, get the boat going, and I'll open the airlock. Now, good luck. See you when Tic-Tac finishes his farewell. The air sounds that flowed out of the object sounded from the door. It opened moments later, and three rushed to the hall. They followed the flashing lights that led them through the hallway, and when they reached the exit, they entered the small airlock, and the door closed behind them for 7 seconds, and we would put the ship in place. We hoped the rooster wouldn't send us to the EZ, which was interrupted when the opposite door opened, throwing the trio out into the stars. They could see countless others tumbling around in the vacuum of space. Accidentally leaving their base, the LRA locked her eyes on the ship and saw it on an eavesdropping course with them, their trajectory impeccable, sending them straight into the open cargo bay. Argali grabbed the little captain and wrapped his bulk around her for protection from the impact. The three of them were thrown into the ship, the blast doors slamming behind them, and so on. What about Humans and Tic-Tac-Toe? Ira asked, twisting free of his grip. We have again established communication with Tic-Tac. He said, don't worry and prepare for the details, saying that you can leave here before the floor on the right floor. Let here leave here before these Siwar clowns and get the bearings again. Why are you thanking me for saving me? No OAL. Were you hurt when you fell for me? No problem. You're welcome, Captain. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you for asking the Team Valley to SCAV. They tested the situation. Most of the Prowler's crew were still floating aimlessly outside, and the Prowler itself had begun to move away from the landing pad and press against the scout captain's weapon lock. They instructed us to stop and not run away, or we would be fined again. We think they may not tell us anymore because both ships have to issue orders in the LRA debate to slip, jump, or surrender before they decide. She saw people revealing their shape from the opportunities below, not going to Chang Doff, but to prove it, and quickly told him, "It's not our boat. It's a person who comes here to attack." We believe he knows that then. What is he doing? Did he betray us? When a person touches and holds an owl, their silhouette stands out against the owl's bright red shell. He launched himself from the side of the ship, viewport cup, and threw yourself into some stray plasma. If we start sliding, Captain Weapons is no longer locked. Space jump. Yes, slide seatbelt. All Zaid opened the cargo hold again. After a minute, the metal shutter window was torn from the inside, and people drove from the ruins of the Prowler Bridge to Chang's Daofu ruins. SCAV is close to interception and receives it in an open bay with a Zate-oriented ship. Once the people were safely on board, the cargo hold was closed and Zaid, after being out of danger, launched a skydive. The crew heaved a sigh of relief, and Ella rose from the podium to observe. The screens are great, and I want to see all of them. Errol, give us a good job now. Thanks for blocking me earlier. Of course it looked like it hurt, Captain. You're welcome, and I'm fine. Thank you. Come on. I am honest. I thank you for taking the initiative to protect me, and I will give you some kind of medal. When we get back to N, I don't need a medal. I just want to do my job when I do not engage in action around the goods. We need to encourage it. People in Tic-Tac, I think we have them to thank. We'll stay here and let you know when we exit the system to make sure Tip-Tac doesn't cross our system again. Or you might find out he was the one who got kicked out of the airlock. It is worth noting that Zate kept us up to date with all the news. When they arrived, there was a dent in the far wall, probably from their jump, and a person was not properly anchored to it. His back wore a small black box from the computer room, unlike before, and he held a strange rifle in his hand. Ah, that's new. This is a good look for you. I'm fine, thanks, the person replied, and a short tic-tac sound came from the black box on the person's back. Unfortunately, he can't remove the suit here. We have to create the proper technique to remove it, because I don't believe they exist in this galaxy. It has been a long time since he has been out of this state, and I assure you, it is not a burden to him. Well, thanks for saving us. So you, killed them all? No, we just disabled their systems on the bridge, and they would be stuck there for a long time. Until someone can take them away, we decide to accompany you to the nearest port where we can get our boat, and then we'll be on our way. Tic-Tac replied, Wait. We encountered all the trouble for you to leave there to help you bring back human beings. Now you want to leave us. After achieving our only purpose, we do not want to participate in another conflict. As long as we can remember, I hope you can understand why we want to make our own choices now. Okay, hold on. We help you get out of bed and awaken humanity. So maybe you could at least come home with us and hear our story told by someone more charming than me. How long has it been since you came? Well, maybe a week. That would be great. Maybe we can spend some time telling you how you know us and more about what you are struggling with. I just said to myself that I wanted to know more. It was a long time ago that I had a good conversation with someone. Of course, this is not part of me. Let me show you the common space here. You two can stay there until we make a stop, then LED them to a large room in the center of the ship, adorned with various different chairs for the different species on board. She took the seat that was present for her, a round flat bed where she was able to curl up and use her long tail as a pillow. She took off the black box that was Tic-Tac and dropped it onto the table in the middle. He had spoken before, and after leaving the room, the Argalia followed the human closely, and LRA only heard the beginning of him and asked how he could break into the spacecraft like this. Was he always this charming? He's not the best. You don't have to shy away from that. We've been through a lot, and I want to tell you more, but I don't want to make him angry at me. He's been through a lot that I can't explain. Well, hopefully, he'll do better in the end. Maybe we can find a beach for him when we stop. I remember him mentioning it. I'm sure he'd appreciate you knowing I've been thinking about something other than pecans. When we were in your computer room, he told me what it could be. He apologized, but at that point, he hadn't done anything to deserve an apology. Tic-Tac was silent for a moment before he spoke. He's been stuck in his head for a long time. I won't dwell on anything weird. He said, 99 is a man of few words who does not come from a world where social interaction is a priority. La was silent for a moment, feeling like there was more Tic-Tac, and was about to say it, but decided not to before she pressed her further. The black box speaks again. What is this core? You just mentioned, gosh, where do I start? I think my species' history would be a good place to start. We were very close to total extinction 1,000 years ago, and that extinction continued over 1,000 years ago. My species is almost completely extinct. We Yawns contacted others in the galaxy after our home system was almost completely destroyed by the collapse. Oddly enough, we found you in the remains of this system, but this particular facility predated our migration. So in the year 1000, you ask LRA, when she looked at the Tic-Tac on the cot she was sitting on, how long is a year? It's exactly the same as you. The planet rotates 365.25 times and goes around the sun once, answers Tic-Tac from the table. In the center of the room, well, that's a fortunate coincidence that saves you from having to calculate any time differences back on topic. Very little of our documentation survived that era, and we were nearly wiped out before we managed to leave. We used generational ships to look for a new world that might be suitable for us. 100 years later, we discovered a planet suitable for us humans to live on. Soon after, we encountered another species and were invited to the core. The core is a permanent representation of nearly 200 species from across the galaxy. Everything was fine for a while, but little by little, people began to notice small events that began to turn into big changes over the centuries as more and more resources poured into the inner rim worlds. The implementation of longer work hours results in higher tax burdens for some, but not others. Yet with these changes, those of us on the outskirts of the galaxy saw little improvement in our own quality of life. Everyone endured. Nobody truly desired to upset the status quo, fearing things could get worse. Everything stopped for a while, and people lived in uncertainty. Then, about 50 years ago, someone leaked thousands of hidden records to the public. Well, no one knows who, but they released detailed files of all the planets, and about billions of tons of resources and credits were transferred from the outer sectors to unknown projects. No one could figure out where this was going, but the colonel never came forward to explain its actions. They disbanded the representation from the outside world, and of course many of our people were quite upset. I mean, we're the ones who put in the work and took away our resources only to find out that most of it wasn't used for anything we could see or use. And the fact that the inner circle lives in a true utopia free from jobs and care, and we pay for it. Everyone in the outside world is angry. People stopped working, quit their jobs, refused to pay any taxes, and then the core sent in their peacekeepers to keep their great machine running for years. The outer worlds were oppressed by the core and forced to continue laboring for even less than what we once had. Those who spoke out were silenced by the peacekeepers or died in mysterious accidents. Slowly, my species secretly rebuilt the communication network throughout the outside world that we all created about 10 years ago. Many of us have successfully driven core staff and their peacekeepers out of our system. Others were less fortunate and were punished for their insolence. Those of us who succeeded started the outer front. Each of the previous species has a different reason for wanting the core gone, but this is our common goal. My species are experts in computer upgrades and maintenance, but also keen tacticians. Our small paws make it easier for us to work on finer details than advanced electronics, but since we are so small, it makes it difficult for us to lift or fight the core. They had American mass-producing, advanced circuits and improved, accurate computer systems, and those who were lucky enough to choose the roles of tactics were sent to live in the inner ring as a peacekeeper advisor. I remember being extremely frustrated when my younger self fell 1 point below the threshold for a tactician position. Looking back, I'm glad I didn't end up being one of those hardcore sympathizers who was bribed to betray my kind of AR girl. The Andri are among the most exploited humans in the galaxy, performing a variety of manual labor jobs, as well as being the main enforcers of the Peacekeeper Corps. Their willingness to engage in conflict and follow orders makes them perfect servants of the right to core. We were able to convince the world's Hardy to help us rebel, promising that we would work to free them all when the time came because these species were used for anything. The core did not feel like assigning an AI because of their reluctance to use widespread AI. They just decided that the EXTs were the next best. Navigation of biological reserve vessels, resource management, and all bureaucratic tasks requiring significant administrative work were entrusted to the former Dan. Core considers them to be biological computer systems because they can easily integrate into any electronic interface. We have all survived so long that we are now almost 80 and have made new allies. Every year, Liesel finished explaining the state of the galaxy and then looked at the tic-tac on the table. It was weird talking to something that couldn't give any social cues about whether it was actually listening. The curious tic-tac was silent for a moment. When he comes up with his next question to the Yayan, how come the core didn't just send their peacekeepers to each world one by one to reestablish their control again in the outer reaches of the galaxy? You would think that helping allies who might be in trouble would be a logistical nightmare. Well, once they lost control of many worlds, they spread out and tried to keep everyone in line. Almost immediately, they must retreat and develop a new plan to ensure they can regain influence as ruthlessly as their status. The army was quite small. They have never thought of putting down so many rebellions at once. Why would their own people join the army when they lived a carefree life at the expense of others? They have been looking for different ways to build up the offensive for a while. At the time, almost all citizens of the outer world longed for a chance to avenge the way they had been treated. So we have no problem rebuilding our forces. If they show the deity their power to take over part of our world, they are going to lose something of their own, and the last thing they want to do is cause any kind of disruption to their overworld. I lost my world is the chaos between the wealthy elites of the inner ring and their delicate ecosystem in split seams. Now each side focuses on a new way to break through the deadlock and direct the benefits. I could go on and on about every little thing the core does to us, but we've been sitting here wagging our tails all day. Well, what a tail you have. I've never seen anything like that with you too. Where did you come from? And how did you end up trapped in the abandoned base of my old home system? I wish I had a better answer about our true origins. I don't know the finer details. Only 909 knows half the story, but I'll tell you what I know, as long as you promise not to disturb him. He doesn't like revisiting that part of his life, and I will try not to burden him with more problems. If he wasn't usually so gloomy, I just hope he gets better. In fact, I've just known him. Well, this version is at least his original moniker, WS99, and we have been together for 30 years. I was given to him shortly after creation for the sole purpose of being his tactical sidekick, a computer, hence the name TAC. But I only remember him personally before he was captured in this facility to get rid of us last year. I had to go back to where I was before. I even met him, and everything I had before disappeared, and I started from scratch. The only memories I have from the previous times are the recordings my previous iteration made and put into his suit's internal memory. It said that I only cared about him and that I had to protect him at all costs and say I was sorry, but it was the only way he could truly be free. I think it hurt him, and he blamed me for losing his best friend. In our case, the original me was what I had, the mission recordings he made on our previous missions, and what he chose to share with me. He and I talked a lot in the weeks after the reset, but once he realized who I was, it completely disappeared. For the record, he refused me. We do terrible things, and we do them without regard for those on the other side of our order. It wasn't until we completed our mission that he realized the true consequences of our actions. From the moment he was conceived, he was created as a weapon designed only to kill or die. People like him, who once no longer served their purpose on human ships. There are two options: retire or get an education. The next generation of human weapons, because we were so good at our jobs, were chosen as drills and trainers. It was during this time that we uncovered the true scope of what was really happening in the terrible machine that we were a part of, just how deep the corruption spread and the scale of what we were doing. He started to see the next generation less as weapons and more as what they truly were: humans. He found that his closest friends from the missions before that had been chosen to retire were, in reality, recycled back into the ship's biosystem loop. They are used as nutritional supplements for the next generation of soldiers. The human vessel is a perfectly refined, meticulous machine, with nothing wasted. Their only goal is to conquer the world and move on to the next. I found a way to free myself from the prison of birth, but at my expense, when he was free, 909 no longer had a purpose in life from birth. All he knew was war, anger, and death. People who spend their lives in prison cannot imagine the freedom that life outside of prison will give them, nor can they understand how to use that freedom. He didn't want to go back to a life where he sacrificed everything to escape and become his old self. I don't want to go down that road either. The old version of me was a lot like him because what I saw on those recordings was what we did together, and it was just horrible and relentless, and we loved every second of it. The human was sitting in the corner of the room when LRA walked into Azure. He was still trying to talk to him, but it seemed to be a pretty one-sided conversation. She patted the human sitting on the ground across from him, who must have been so scared when you opened that window to hell. I would throw Captain Rexley straight into the void from his own command center. I wonder what the penalty would be for that. I don't want to hurt people who are just doing their job, the human said, looking away from Aller and looking at the small hat sitting in front of him. His masked face showed no real emotion, and I felt uncomfortable looking at it, as if it were deliberately designed to strike fear into anyone unfortunate enough to find themselves in its gaze. Could you please go to Bay 3 and move the Doom and Tritium storage from their original location? Please request yes, no problem. Captain, we need to refuel the generators already. Argyle asked, but Tic-Tac has requested assistance with something. It should be quite simple. It would be great if you could help him. She instructs Endurant to leave them behind to complete his new mission. Well, I'll do it the human way. We have a sparring session when I get back. Maybe I can teach you an idea or two. Argali bragged and muttered as he left the room, flexing his purple arms. Lizra turned to people because he apologized for his good friendship. He had to look into their eyes. I promised that when he met a man similar to him, he would just take him away. I can tell, but I won't say I share his enthusiasm. Of course, you no longer have to, unless you want to, and then you are free. What can we do now? Anywhere you want to go. Do you have a place in mind that isn't super quiet with lots of islands? Well, we are planning our first stop in the Kori sector. They have beautiful oceans and beautiful cities. One of my favorite architectural styles, and some of the best food. It's a pretty nice farming world. I don't need to eat. Well, I'm not a culinary connoisseur. Then, no problem. We'll report our mission status to O. I'd appreciate it if you could at least join us and tell them in person why our mission isn't quite what they expected, and we'll see. The man says, taking a long moment to pause before his next answer. So how does the food taste? Please excuse my food. I have never. It has a good taste. It can taste like anything that is really difficult to explain. Everything has a different taste, and I think even Zat species have to eat food. How have you never eaten? I don't have to. I think a species of your size and speed needs to eat a lot. How do you keep yourself safe? You need a diet at a certain level. I can give you some suggestions. If you want, I think you are a VS. I've never tasted anything. I've tasted blood. It wasn't another person's. Was it just my own when I got hurt once? Well then, as captain of this vessel, and you somewhat a member of my crew, now I order you to enjoy some food at the next. Stop understanding LRA and looking up at people with a sad expression. It is difficult to imagine that someone has spent a lifetime in slavery and never has the opportunity to experience anything else, even if they are overtime by the core. They also have time to rest, eat, and enjoy the little things in life. Humans don't have that comfort. It is clear how miserable life must be to never be able to enjoy it. It filled her with deep sadness, and she wondered what was going on behind the opaque mask. She looked more closely at the man, trying to imagine who he really was. Human, what do you look like under the helmet? I don't know. What do you mean? You don't even know what you look like. I don't want you. Don't take off your helmet just to breathe real air and feel the sun on your fur. I never have to see clearly, and we will never judge you for looking human. I hope you know this, but I don't force you to do something you feel uncomfortable with our career. After a few days, you can relax anywhere on the boat. To leave her bits for her for the rest of the day. Her tour Lizra is looking for TIC, TAC, and Argyle to see what they are doing when they arrive. All the boxes were removed to make room for what Argalia had failed to collect. I told you those hands were too big to make those fine adjustments you asked for, and the bald purple alien reprimanded him as he tossed one of the tools aside. I will do it myself. If you can, make do with what you have. However, getting angry and throwing the driver is not going to get us anywhere. Just be glad I haven't thrown it at your stupid little box. It wouldn't /T even dent me that I can assure you, Tic-Tac. Oh, is this the challenge we're in for? Liesel scolded you, little one. Oh, he'll find my manners when he ends up in the trash. Once I figure out what Neanderthal and barbarian really mean. A barbarian is a brainless warrior who solves problems with strength and anger that might otherwise be overcome by more delicate means. I have another, longer definition. If you are interested, this is it. I'm more interested in gentlemen. Calm down, gentlemen. What do you want to do here? Maybe I can help. There's no need to go around scolding. Instead, we can work together. Instead, Lou goes between the two and sees their project. I try to drive a durability card to complement the exhausted hydrogen isotopes, but it seems we have come across the first step. Okay, this step involves asking the captain. All he had to do was disconnect the storage container from my rear port and make the necessary adapter between my inlet valve and the outlet of the hydrogen storage unit. Then continue to promote the transfer of materials 909 without responding to my request. Otherwise, I will let him act for a very long time. These are against it, so let it break down into some easier-to-understand processes. Most of the 3 people worked at night to create almost identical adapters from different spare parts around Gulf Bay. This place looks like the workshop that the study once looked like, and Argyle picked it up. The black box of tic-tac lifted him to the shoulders without letting me shrink back. "I don't want to be carried around like cargo anymore," Box complained. "Do you want me to leave you and your other shipmates here? You become one of the people here. After all, we have the tectonic water system and the Shar waste cleaner." I heard her sweet company vision, which just brought me back to the common room. "If you're trying not to push me around, don't worry. You'll be in good hands." Computer, I would refrain from crashing my barbaric form into every piece of furniture on Liesel's side, because before she could decide where to go, they both headed back to the common room. She then got a ping on her interface. She pulled out the small tablet from her pants and concluded that Zate asked for her existence on the bridge when she arrived. This time they finished 6 times, worked most of the body themselves, and wrote on 2 separate interface terminals. "You seem busy," LRA commented. "We are currently operating at 60% capacity. There is no need to be alarmed. While you were gone, we had done some in-depth research into the true identity of our new guests. We think we've discovered something disturbing that deserves your attention, Captain." "What is it?" "I don't know how it feels to have you spying on me right under our friend's nose. These are necessary preventive measures. You will tell us later. We would like to see your front panel so we can upload the information directly. We believe that if we use any online means to transmit these messages, the messages may be compromised. It may take some time to read. Our investigation was thorough, but we ask that you do so. Rather soon, we have tagged it as urgent. You can just explain it to me here. Save me from trouble and make Zaida the captain. We don't know if he listened to this conversation." "What do you mean?" "Tic-tac Zate, you're starting to worry me. How can you be so sure they have bad intentions? They have treated us admirably so far, and even helped us escape from a lunar facility. We ask that you read the full model we have written before asking us any other questions. The captain perceives our words about it. Do you trust us?" "I mean, yes, I trust you, Zaid, but read the dossier, Captain, please." "Okay, I will, but I'm up for a while I take it to my quarters and get back to you." The first thing in the morning, Lizra interfaced with Zate, and when they had completed the upload, they handed it back to the captain. She put it back in her jumpsuit and wondered what could have caused Zate to work up to operating at 60% capacity, which couldn't have been healthy for them. They may be mostly mechanical, but the biological part of them needs rest. At one point, Zeta seemed certain that whatever was on the block would change her opinion of her new members. She didn't like to doubt their true intentions, but she could tell there was more to the story than tick-tock when she decided it was time to settle down. In the evening, the LRA went to the public toilet to prepare for bed. She jumped on the stool to look in the mirror and was surprised. It was a completely crushed, cracked spider that occurs above the surface and in the middle, where her face had to have a big influence from some fists. When LRA had settled into her premises at night, she pulled over her interface, a pillow, and looked at the message. Zate built her. The captain hesitated to open it and wondered what it might contain, which may have worried her crew. However, you have to match your curiosity and then click on the folder to reveal its contents. Most of them have old photos and recordings. A document called Mankind caught her attention. She immediately scrolled and covered the attached photos and hashtags before going back to read the entire message. Captain, we have compiled all known mentions of the human species from the historical archives and other relevant records from other repositories. You will find all the information we collected during our survey. We do not recommend sharing this information with anyone other than the crew, as sharing such sensitive material may put us at greater risk. We found that there is no formal basic documentation classified as a person in this galaxy or other reviews. At best, the existence of a species is speculative resistant, using rumors from non-verified sources. They are either not native to our galaxy, or they hide their existence to the point where it might be controversial. If you will, the O reports for our original mission only explained the possibility of the UN detecting alien technology of known origin that might be related to the collapse of Yian. It appears that the little information we had been given by the O on the origins of humans only classified it as a potential weapon. Our own inquiry places the furthest mention of human beings in hidden Yian military documents that predate the migration of your species. After obtaining these documents, we discovered photos and video logs of surviving members of the Yian species. However, documents related to the YYN collapse were completely erased from the galactic record about 700 years ago. What we discovered turned out to be disturbing, and whoever tried to bury these documents went to great lengths to ensure they never surfaced again. Our initial goal was to investigate why the hum was detected in this object, but we were not satisfied with the results of the cross-reference. Symbols found on surviving human armor. Images that failed the main review. The symbols reappeared on the bridge feeds of Yian civilian transports, which were subsequently destroyed during migration. The symbols on the human armor have many similarities to the symbols on the ships that hunt the last remaining Aryas. But at the time, for unknown reasons, attacks on generation ships no longer allowed your species to survive the migration. After further investigation, we found a corrupted video log from a year ago. Although the pre-migration to recover most of the damage we collected will take weeks at full computing power, here is one record we were able to salvage without much effort. It's pretty graphic. As the video played, Liesel watched with rapt attention what it would reveal about the fate of her people all those years ago. Yang City. In the middle crowded a group of Ayas, about 30 people. Most of them were crying or nervous. A group of soldiers who looked identical to a person's pace, and at the line where they chose individuals who were quickly starting away from the group, and outside the frame when they had finished may have had 20 on. The people present turned their weapons against the group and continued to execute the helpless little Jana. One of the soldiers turned to the camera and pointed his long arm in the direction of the camera. Lizra turned away and left the recording without being able to see any more. The captain continued to read the document, hoping there was an explanation for what she had just witnessed. Tic-Tac never mentioned that the human missions were against her own people. Perhaps this was one of the many messages he chose not to reveal. She continued to wonder what else Zate might find after recovering the archive. Unable to discover anything more about the Buzz or its counterpart from the pre-migration Yuan archives here, we began searching the wider web for anything that matched the symbols of human armor. Again, the only examples we have found are between 10 and 200 years old. They came from failure in the outer ring, in a world where the uprising or accident occurred during the main management period. She hesitated to see another editor, but Lizra caught the crew. She played the next video and watched it carefully. This photo is from a security camera, which appears to be a device used by rebels on Go's homeworld. It depicts several groups working around various computer systems, while other groups are busy with various tasks in the room.